Good day and welcome back to Lewwe here from Doc. Dr. Mitchell, it's always a pleasure to be in your presence. How are you today?
I'm fine, as you know. I just came in from Parliament and so on. So I'm really fine, but it's good to be here again. And of course, this is our second podcast, so I'm looking forward to it.
Looking forward to many more. So let's get started. Dr. Mitchell, Grenada has been hit with a number of consecutive natural disasters in recent weeks and months. As the former chairman of the Small States Forum, who championed climate change, what are your views? What are your views on the support or the lack thereof given to the Grenadians, specifically by the larger countries?
Well, the first thing I want to recognize, I felt honored to have been asked by the international community, the World Bank, and others to become chairman of the Small States Forum, and that took me all around the globe, and to be able to see all these countries and some of the problems that they're going through, and it certainly gave me an idea of some of the things that we see happening to our countries in the region as a whole. But I just want to make this point that we have to understand that the world has gone through a lot of changes relative to some of the things that we have done to our environment. And I think many people still do not understand the extent of damage to the ecosystem that we have in fact inflicted on our own countries. And therefore, I saw that education that I got by being involved gave me even more information than I had before as to the problems that we face. We see, in fact, when I was growing up, the young boy, it used to be almost every 50 years you see a major natural disaster. But you've seen this is almost sometimes twice in a year, sometimes twice in 2 months. You see all kinds of things happening in individual countries. So it's an area that I believe that we have to pay a lot more attention to. And the most significant thing about it, we have to accept who are the main contributors to the destruction of our environment and some of the climate changes that we see. And the bigger industrial countries. They're ones that polluting the atmosphere in every sense of the word. They're the ones that have in fact caused many of the problems that we see occurring globally. So it seems, and they're the ones with the resources who made money off the destruction in some cases. So it makes a lot of sense that they have a fundamental responsibility to help with the mitigation that we all recognize that we must do at this time. And it seems to me a lot of promises have been made to the small states around the world by the bigger countries, the more industrial countries who have the resources. But it seems like promises have been made, but the deliverance of the aid has been almost minimal. And it seems to me that they have to come to terms with this. And it's something I believe all small countries must be more united in their voices of concern that must be raised with respect to what is taking place. I mean, every time you see a major shower of rainfall in our country, and it's happening in other countries in the region, I know that, and around the world, then you see the level of damage that's been done to the lands and the possible problems that we have in our own country. Today, you pass certain places and you almost have to be frightened when you look at the hillside close to where you're driving. You see almost the space, like any rock or something could fall through. So it's affecting the possibility of the physical life of the people around those areas. And we must always remember, as I pointed out in Parliament today, that Cotameli incident, where this big rock came down none of us knew about it. I used to pass there, and people traverse the western side all the time. So we have to be concerned, and therefore we have to keep calling on the major countries to do what they believe that is clearly a necessity and a moral responsibility to help smaller states to deal with mitigation relative to the climate changes.
I agree. Dr. Mitchell, the bushing is a big thing to Grenadians, right? And the new National Party, you guys have issued a statement advising the government to aggressively clean out the bush as a means of helping with the flooding situation. So can you elaborate on your philosophy on the debushing and environmental wardens?
Well, there are two aspects of this. And I grew up in a small village where clearly a lot of poverty existed. And I know that the road work and the opportunity to earn a few dollars was something that people in these communities look forward to, because in many cases they did not have jobs. And other cases, even the jobs they have did not pay them sufficiently to be able to take care of their family and to deal with their basic needs. So the bushing came in as an initial help to provide support to the poor and vulnerable. That was one aspect of this. And having grown up in that environment and saw the problem that was created and the necessity for this program, I could not walk into a government and being part of a government and not recognize that I have to do a lot. And not just give the amount of gangs that I used to see then, but put out much more. So we always made arrangement in our government to ensure that we have much more gangs than there used to be be implemented in other governments' time. And I'm proud of the fact that many, throughout different times of the year, whether it's Easter, whether it's Carnival or the holiday period, and particular Christmas, we used to have 5 and 6 fortnights with over 6,000 people working throughout the length and breadth of the country. And what you saw then was a lot of economic activities. The little shops in the villages, wherever people used to congregate and socialize, you see them, a lot of buzz in economic activity, people spending. I remember several times around now so around this period, you go through St. George's or you go to Grenville, and many of the retail shops were open 10 o'clock in the night. I used to be surprised. And some of them opening up on Sundays because people and places are filled. I remember walking into around early November, 2006, yes, in Grenville. And when I walk in there, the gentleman I know has an Indian store, and I always pass and say hello. The gentleman has been very kind to us. And I walked in there, and it was like you're in a marketplace with some hot items that everybody looking for. The place was jam-packed. I couldn't even get room to come in. And I had to shout him at the top of the crowd and say, I just passed in to say hello. People were all shopping in that place. In fact, there was nothing less than about 100 persons inside that place. Now you're walking through the stores and retail shops throughout the length and breadth of the country, and like the whole place dead.
Lacquer?
You go through, you stop by shops where young boys and girls congregated before, and you see a lot of buzz over the years we were in government. But no, the whole place is dead. You would not believe. I was commenting to my driver as we are coming to this place. And I say, you would not believe this is 4 weeks before Christmas. Mm-hmm. You will not believe. Because there's no activity. The whole place is dead. The road is light with traffic. So you know something fundamental is not occurring in the country at this time. So I see two reasons for the debushing. Clearly the environmental factors, because clean up the drains would help to deal. A lot of the flooding you see happening now because the drains are blocked, and a lot of the hangings, the tree hangings around, is preventing a lot of the materials to flow. So they're not going through a path where you could enter the drains. So you have a serious problem. So we constructed this environmental wardens in addition to the debushing gangs, which has two, as I said, economic activity, two factors related to it, the economic and also the social factor and the environmental issues. And I'm saying that next thing we know after we left government, the people elected a new government, which is their right. They're making the environmental wardens because they had a contract. They couldn't just move them like that because it was not a debushing where you're there for a fortnight, a few fortnights. And they put them on the roads to do the bushing. So the drains are left unblocked. And, blocked. And therefore, the problem is no wonder that you're seeing a tremendous level of flooding. And I'm not saying that you don't have flooding in all times. And in other times in the country. Some areas used to be very bad, but we've corrected a lot of it. But the extent of the flooding and the problems that we're seeing today is quite frightening.
So thank you. Yes, but I do believe a lot of persons are looking out for that the bushing money as it's Christmas time, you know. People want to go shopping. You mentioned that.
But but I tell you something. the guy was a farmer. He goes to his land. You know what he used to do? He comes and get a contract. And he calls in 5 o'clock in the morning. And he goes and he does his contract. Because they tell you this is your task. He finishes his contract by 8, 9 o'clock, and then he goes in his farm. So he's not losing a cent of his normal economic activity or what he earns in his farming activity. The same thing with fishermen. So what we are doing is empowering a lot of our poor people with more resources so they can do more for the family and more for themselves. And by implication, in helping the country as a whole.
You did mention proper drainage. Even in my area of Mamakan, I have never seen landslides of that magnitude. And my entire road was blocked. I had to put on boots and walk out. We had to get tractors. So proper drainage is very important throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, and
But it seems like these guys maybe never lived in Grenada before, many of them in the government, because I'm wondering how come none of them can see the necessity. Just a few little gangs they have out on the road now, you know. Christmas is here, and as I mentioned, over 6,000 people is to be on the road through the length and breadth of the country. So there's a lot of money's being spent, and the pockets of the poor people is to be enhanced, and therefore they're able to do a lot more for themselves.
So, Dr. Mitchell, moving on, right? But we're still on the line of crisis and flooding and so forth. You have led Grenada through many crises, right? And the recent flooding has caused significant damage to the livelihoods and life. So what type of support would you suggest to the government to give to the affected persons?
No, well, first of all, government has to have the resources to be able to help. And the extent of the help would depend on the resources government has. Remember when we were in government, we got in 1995 when we won, things were tough. There was no savings left to the treasury for us to be able to utilize to help. So whatever we did and whatever we were able to do, enhance people's life, we had to help take decisions and innovate to bring economic activity and have the surpluses necessary to help people and to invest in the development of the country. That was the case. Similarly, when we came back into government in 2008, there was absolutely no money in the treasury. And I mean, I was Minister of Finance, in 2013, because the government was in office from 2008. Yeah. The NDC was there 2008 to 2013. So when we came in, there was literally no money in the treasury. And I gave the story, having to beg my colleagues in the Caribbean, and I went to Trinidad and were able to get some help to ease up the pain. So by the time we left government, again, the NDC was shocked. They said they didn't believe we had all our money. They said they were the ones who said that we have over $500 million left in cash. They now boasted that they made over $1 billion in CBI. And the same CBI that they criticized and say we were selling passport like hot bread and butter. So they had all that money. And then because of our initiative, they were able to get in 14 days over $118 million through CRIF because of the NNP again. So they had a mass of resources. The question you ask, what have they done and what are they doing with that resources? So clearly, if given that they have that level, we should have seen a specific package like we had for small businesses, and you had to show what you were going to do with it, because you're going to just give people money and then do what you want. That doesn't make any sense. We were able to help fishermen who lost boats, some of the equipment and so on. We were able to invest in other areas of economic hardship that suffered whenever there is a problem. So people benefited. So the government should have had the savings and utilize it in specific areas. Housing. The government should be able to help people to build back their houses, and not just a few houses. Since you have all that money, you should be able to give a contract to one contractor, building contractor, build 10 houses, another one to build 15 houses, and so on. And by so doing, you will be creating multiple levels of economic activities, and they will be employing the people. I hear in order to bring in prefab houses to the country. That's what they're spending the money on. My feeling is, I'm not saying that prefab may not be necessary in some cases, but I think the government is shortchanging themselves by just dealing with prefab. Because then prefab is a contractor and is just the technology that's being used to just put these houses down. Very few among level of labor. It's not a labor-intensive activity. And therefore, the government itself, politically, is creating problems for itself. But again, this government doesn't seem to understand that people, when you show interest in people, then you get love back from people.
You give what you get.
You give what you get. I know people are very good at that. So I'm saying that they should have a series of programs for several sectors of the economy, that they get specific help. And I'm saying everyone should get grant money. There should be some criteria going forward, because we did have specific programs for specific groups in the country. And I think that's what needs to happen. But you see, you hear nothing. And the other part of this, I mean, when we had a disaster in our time, we would call on the business community, we call on the churches, we call different organizations, and we meet and we get ideas. You hear nothing. Even the opposition at the time when Ivan came, we called them in. We had a meeting with them and gave them an opportunity to help get involved, and without any basic restrictions, to bring in goods from outside and clear it and give their supporters or whoever they wish to. We were liberal in our approach, and maybe that hurt us electorally, but we are very happy. We built back the country faster than anybody expected. And so I am saying, I don't understand why it is that you cannot see or hear the level of initiative being taken to aid sectors of the society to improve their lot in this very difficult time that they are facing.
And we've had disaster after disaster, as we mentioned before, Beryl, and we're still feeling the after effects of that, because some of homes aren't even rebuilt as yet. And so we're 4 months post Beryl, and it's like we haven't made any progress. And to add to that, we've had all these massive floodings and all these slides. So I think the government really needs to think about it and go back to the drawing table and take even some of the recommendations.
The problem is that, as I said, I don't know how they'll do it, because they're not communicating with anybody. They just vai doing whatever they want. And if you raise anything, there's an arrogance coming, like you have no right to speak.
Yeah.
You know, I saw it up to this parliament this morning when simple things are being raised. People getting vexed. And I said, but I don't know, I can't understand this thing. People offering advice and you're getting vexed with them. No, I don't have a lot of hope, honestly. I make these statements all the time and saying that we are willing to cooperate and to help, but I'm convinced that the leadership in this government is the fundamental problem that the country is facing, and I'm convinced that you will not see any change. Because they had this concept, you don't have to do anything, you could treat people however you want, and wait for election time and go and offer a man of money. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And my perception of those in government, those that appear to have the power, right? Because it appears to have a small group that yielding power in this government, and they seem to think everything is offering you money to buy you. That's the perception you get. Whether they intend it to be that way, but they seem to all feel money can solve. Just giving money to an individual, not a structured program, empowering people to help themselves, to lift them up, but just give them $1 and they will support you. Election time, they're going to have a rude awakening if they understand Grenadians very well.
Yep. And that says a lot about how they think of you as an individual, that you're easy to bribe, easy to control, and easy to manipulate.
Well, just give him $1, and he all right. Treat him as bad as you want, and I could see an election coming, and you see men come knock your door and offering you material things, and take 5 years of suffering after that. Go back for 5 years. I think they're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, definitely so. I think one of the messages that I would give to the government right now is that success leaves patterns. We're speaking on the issues, natural disasters that occurred, and I think probably you should take a page from Dr. Mitchell's book, because he's been there before and he's done that. So that would be my advice to you, the government. Strengthen your back, broaden your back, because you're in politics with 100,000 different opinions. So strengthen your back and listen to constructive criticism. But Dr. Mitchell, back to you again. Let's not get carried away.
I know you won't see that. You won't see. There were a few guys in there, persons in there who may want to do this, but I can only suspect that they themselves are having serious concerns of the direction that the party and the government appears to be heading, and that the lack of feelings, the lack of empathy, lack of love, lack of concern, and the arrogance must be affecting some of the members of that team. That's why I said I don't expect to see any change.
But Dr. Mitchell, so River Road was among one of the areas that was hardest hit by the flooding, right? And the project commenced while you were in government. So what are your views on the halting of that said project?
Well, I can't understand. You came into government and something's already in train. People have been employed. These contracts were given after serious technical analysis. And give NNP this, that's our strength. We weren't into what you call just reacting, where plans were in place. And Minister Bowen was one of the better persons in that regard, as an engineer and a very skilled and talented person who cares deeply about people. And the planning process, when you make these projects, it's beneficial for people. But because you win an election, you stop most of the projects. They were stopped, most of them. Some of them was restarted earlier than others. But most of them, I can't say all, most were stopped. But it's so unnecessary. And that River Road project, this flooding, people nearly drowned many times in that place when they have serious flooding, historically so. And I could not understand what was the mindset in stopping a project like this, especially in the area close to the city of the country. Any part of the country you should be dealing with it, but in the heart of the city, of the capital, you stopped it. And they could not give a serious reason for the stoppage of this. And I was willing, any one of us, because it's our country and all people that will suffer. In any event, some of us could get hurt. In fact, Minister Bowen's wife nearly drowned there one time a few years ago with a vehicle was almost washed away by the floods. So you can't just say, because you could be affected yourself personally. And that's it. That's what I'm saying. I can't understand what was the purpose behind this and so on. And you see what's happening now? No, that's 2.5 years, huh? 2.5 years you're in office. Now there's a flooding and you want to blame us? And saying the design was bad and what? Who are talking about design? Who are the engineers that are telling you this? What's your qualification for talking this kind of language? I looked at the members of the team. There hardly anybody in there with any serious technical in terms of scientific knowledge. Right? Basically, let's use the word general scientific in a general sense. I don't know there are many people in there, but you heard all sorts of people, what you call it, overnight engineers, telling you about this project was badly designed and blah, 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 and want to blame NNP. Everything is NNP.
To score political points.
But you were there 2.5 years, even if something was wrong with this. You want to tell me you could not solve it, deal with it in 2.5 years, while still blaming the person who was there. And most cases, we're pretty sure that the design was not wrong, but it's their lack of understanding of what we were doing. And this whole concept of hate and spite and wanting to prove that you're better than that other person seem to be what the ideas that control in the mindset of many. It's unfortunate because one thing to tell you, and members of our team, no, I've constantly preached this. Country comes first, your party and yourself and other things come afterwards. Well, of course, God first, country, and everything else afterwards. So, but I don't see anything. I don't seem to believe now. That's why I said I don't expect to see any changes. And that to me is frightening.
I think not even River Road itself, but there was a young lady that had lost her life. So I just want to say to the family my condolences and so forth.
Yes, it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
because,
it's very unfortunate.
And these are somebody in the prime of their life. That's why I said this thing could affect anybody.
Yeah.
It's not about NNP and NDC. It's about the people of the country, and that's what we must be thinking.
Definitely. And I believe sometimes people pay attention to certain things only when it hits home. Only.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And that's where I believe NNP is slightly different from some of the things that we're seeing.
The compassion and the empathy for our Grenadian
We are not
people.
perfect. Yeah. Like everybody else, we made mistakes. But I think generally speaking, people could say that there was a clear understanding that we have to work together and we must share ideas going forward.
Definitely. We're moving away from the natural disasters. We have lots of activities coming up. So, Dr. Mitchell, what can Grenadians expect from this massive rally on December 1st? And what makes this event so special?
Well, we've been in government for 40 years. And I feel fortunate with the help of the Almighty. I feel reasonably healthy and still around, actively so, to able to give my expertise and my experience as much as is required as far as the country's future development is concerned. And therefore we felt, given the history of the NNP and given the amount of development that has taken place, whether it's electricity, whether it's telephone, whether it's water, roads, general development, education, healthcare, NNP has been of the vanguard of the major development that has taken place in this country. And it seems to me what we have to celebrate that 40 years and make people understand that we achieved a lot during that particular time. As I said before, we weren't perfect. Just in hindsight, the things that we did we could have done better. And in hindsight, but that's life. But I feel fortunate that we have a team of persons in the New National Party, and we see more and more people coming in to help take that vision to the next 40 years. So we're celebrating this 40, and that's why I feel very happy and moved by the fact that we're able to get one former prime minister and a present prime minister from the region to come to celebrate with us that achievement of Grenada's development. And in both cases, the leaders of both of those, leader of the parties of these two prime ministers, original persons that were there in 1984. In the case of Jamaica, Edward Seaga, he gave us a lot of moral and other advice to help us going forward as the NNP in terms of the development of the country. And John Compton in St. Lucia. So having Andrew Holness here, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, and having Alan Chastity, to me, it's I feel moved that they would put their time out to come to visit us in this very crucial time, to celebrate with us. It's a big occasion. And the population, the people who gave us their support, some people may not have voted for us, but some people contributed to the development to make our job easier and better. And I think we need to celebrate with not just even our supporters, but people who made contribution and may not necessarily have voted for us. We all must celebrate the 40 years going forward.
Definitely. It's a big milestone. But what message do you hope that their presence will send to both NNP supporters and the wider Caribbean?
The message is it shows the connection of, and how the NNP's party has been seen in the region as a whole, the connection that we have within this Caribbean Democratic Union and the International Democratic Union to show that we have connections, which of course is essential. I hear some people be talking about they have connections, and so on, and they could raise resources. NNP won 5 elections with those of us who were there, and we were able to raise lots of money, and were fortified in reason in winning those elections as a whole. And I mean, I give you an example. NNP, it's 1980, 86, 85. We were in Germany with all the world leaders. I was representing the Prime Minister of the country there, and he couldn't travel. And in that audience in Germany, next to the Berlin Wall, to the West Germany then, I was there with Ronald Reagan, the President of the United States, Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister Kai-Fu from Japan, Chancellor Kohl from Germany, the President of France. All these over 40 odd world leaders were there, and I said, look at me sitting there with all these world leaders. We had strong relationship with the Republican Party, and we got significant help because of that relationship during the period of former President George Bush that was there. Our connection regionally with governments all towards the region brought us a lot of support. And we were able to get the kind of help that we needed in times of difficulties and so on. So the partnership, the relationship NNP had within the regional organization and international organization was extremely helpful in some of the decisions and successes that we've had for this country as a whole.
So since you're speaking on connections, how have these connections with various world leaders shaped your vision for Grenada?
Well, first of all, I think you learn from the experiences when you had people like James Mitchell around, and these guys were there long before me. Anytime I had a serious decision to make, and I felt I wasn't absolutely sure, I gave a call to James Mitchell. I gave a call to John Compton, Eugenia Charles. All these people were there, and anyone home in Grenada, former politicians, whether they were NNP members or not, supporters, I would call them. and they would offer advice. I remember calling Eric Gary at certain time when he was still a leader of his party, but I knew that he would not find it difficult to share his views with me. So I called him sometimes, and he offered his advice, up to me to take some of the advice, not necessarily everything he said. But I think it demonstrates relationship, as opposed to now, after 40 years in government, this present Prime Minister has never called me once about a matter concerning the country's development. And he doesn't have to call me. But I did call him, and he said that he told the nation that I call him and he didn't call me. So, but it tells you the mindset. And sometimes I feel sorry for the Prime Minister, because I really believe that maybe he didn't understand the extent of what this job entails. And maybe he's probably in a trance as far as some of the the behavior patterns that I see. Gets vexed very easily, and so on. And it's a bit unfortunate, because I think all of us want the best for our country. If the NDC is doing well, then all our people will be happier. You don't necessarily have to vote for them if you feel you have an alternative that's better. But we should not be afraid to see or unhappy to see the present government performing well and helping people. And that, to me, is how we should operate and going forward as a whole. So we were able to leverage the NNP's regional and international connection to get some of the development that we got for the country as a whole. And a lot of the young people, some of them don't even know some of the things that we had to go through to reach where we are today. But I must say, the members of the NNP team, the supporters, the people who not necessarily, as I said before, supported us, but contributed in ideas when we asked them for some ideas that help us to propel this country forward.
Dr. Mitchell, the NNP is a member of the International Democratic Union.
Yes.
So how do the IDU's values align with the goals and principles of the new National Party?
Well, first of all, the CDU, the Caribbean Democratic Union, is associated with the IDU, which is the International Democratic Union. And it's a body comprising center-right political organizations. I've always said to people, for us, for the NNP, we may be considered to be conservative as far as fiscal matters are concerned. In other words, managing a country's property and ensuring that government is as small as possible, because you want to be able to not invest in big bureaucracy where you're just paying people for doing little, but empowering people, right? So you have enough savings on your recurrent side so you could invest in the development and the capital projects of the country. That was a fundamental philosophy. So in terms of fiscal policies, I would say we are conservative. In terms of social policies, understanding that we must invest in helping people who are not able to help themselves and to create opportunities for the poor and vulnerable. I consider the NNP to be liberal in its approach, because we can see every time the NNP gets into office, the ordinary folks are better off than they were previously when the NDC was in government. That's a testimony to the conscience of the new National Party and the feelings for the people who need help in the country as a whole. So that's why many of our programs, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, one aspect you could always see an emphasis on those who need help the most.
And it shows that the new National Party's heart, the very heart of them, is in the right place.
Some people have a heart as a symbol, but they don't.
Not the right heart.
No heart. No
An iron heart. Dr. Mitchell, how are you feeling as the NNP moves closer to Convention Day? And what excites you most about this moment?
Well, for me, I think we have not had a convention for 2 years, and we think it's important at this time to call that convention, to be able to meet with our supporters and be able to formulate plans for the next few years going forward. And I think I am excited by this, and we certainly look forward to this convention. And remember, some of us have been there 40 years, and we can't be there forever. So we have to be able to show our supporters what the future would look like, so they will feel safe. Some of them may have the confidence in some of us who have been there for a while, but they also know we can't be there forever. So we have to be able to convince them and show them the future is still bright whenever the time comes and we're no longer there. That here are the new faces, and then we are nurturing them and giving them support and so on. And I feel excited. Just having someone like you, your presence here today is a clear indication. And a lot of young people, I see a lot of young people showing interest in the countries, in the new National Party, and willing to come forward and offer services and offer themselves. And I feel, to me, excited, and that's why I look forward to the convention, so the young people of the country can see the future will be well protected with what is taking place within the new national. So I'm excited and looking forward to the convention on the 15th of December.
Definitely. I have gotten so many messages like, Amanda, I really want to work with the new National Party and so forth.
They're getting a feeling, and they see our brothers and all of there. And they say, well, these people never got involved in active politics before. That means something must be good happening. Something good is happening. Right? Some of them are getting involved at this time. They see the future.
Something good is going to happen. Well, you know, the new National Party is number one.
I like that.
Something good is going to happen. So, Dr. Mitchell, this is where we end. Thank you so much for coming out. And to you, our supporters, our viewers, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.
Well, I tell you, and I'm so happy to be part of this exercise. I really believe, with my 40 years of experience in the life of the country, political life, I feel that I have a responsibility to share my stories, my views on various topics. Therefore, I look forward to the period when we're talking about sports and other activities that make up the part of the whole building of the human mind and body. And I look forward to this because there's so many things that happen in my life and other people's life as I see it when I was growing up and my involvement over the years. I need to share it. And I always express the view. It's unfortunate that many of our leaders in the past never wrote their stories, never told their stories. Eric Gary should never have gone to the Grace Day Beyond without him telling the story about how he succeeded in his life, what made him reach the heights he reached. We needed to hear from him, not somebody writing about him, as others have done. But he's saying it himself, and I feel I have a fundamental responsibility. So this is part of my major trust going forward.
Thanks again, Dr. Mitchell. It was nice having you.
Thank you very much.
Show them